Let me introduce our presenter to you, who I get to work with every day. I get the privilege and the opportunity to work with Wim Elfrink on a daily basis. Wim is somebody who is really every day tirelessly trying to figure out how the lessons that we've learned over the last 30 years in the development of the internet, which Cisco's been in the middle of, can be applied to all the things that we've discussed in the last day and a half. Really how cities can embrace and harness the power of this amazing technology, the digital technologies, plural, that are now abundant, that are now changing all of our lives, how to make them relevant, useful, and particularly how to make them transformational for cities. And it's not just smart cities, which is a word that's used so often that it's become somewhat meaningless. So Wim sits today in San Jose at Cisco's headquarters. You can see the title of his presentation, but let me give you a little background. He's responsible as Executive Vice President for our focus on industries like the city building industry. And he's just back from India meeting with the new Prime Minister, Modi, who before his visit to Washington, D.C. and the White House earlier this week, I guess it was maybe late last week, Modi had an opportunity to talk about his new 100 Smart Cities program for India. So he has a responsibility for that, but he also has responsibility for emerging countries. And he's our Chief Globalization Officer, which means he built another headquarters essentially for Cisco in India and lived there with his family for quite a few years as that was built. So he keeps an eye on global north, global south, on all the types of cities that we're all interested in. And we're fortunate to have some of you here from the global south, but Wim brings that kind of global perspective to everything he does. We're going to be convening an Internet of Things World Forum in a few days in Chicago, and we have 1,500 guests from about 40 countries who will be there working with us to really identify what's the potential for making all of the assets in the city come alive. So, without any further delay, let me introduce Wim Elfrink, who's sitting in our San Jose studio to walk you through the Internet of Everything, how it changes everything in our lives and in our cities' lives. Wim, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Gordon. Thanks for that introduction. And actually, I'm standing. That makes me more energetic. It's 7:30 here in the morning, and 10:30 with you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. So as Gordon alluded, the Internet of Everything changes everything. It's driving new business models. And at the first point I want to give you, we're talking about a 3 trillion new industry, urban services, developed locally, scalable globally. Let me start with the picture that I see as relevant for cities. I'm a guy from Rotterdam. I was born at the biggest harbor in the world. My father was in urban planning and architect in utilities, and he thought in a physical world. The harbor, the city hall, all those things that we did on the kitchen table and that he drew has been built and is there, and I have great memories of that. But I'm a digital architect. Cisco is a company that should be seen as digital architects. So what's happening now is that we have a physical world, well-known, with great prosperity, with sustainability, but we now have a unique opportunity to put a digital overlay on a physical infrastructure. And the big difference is this digital overlay is scalable, is fast, can grow tremendously. So something you develop today in your city can be a global business model a day later, can be accepted a year later. And I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you some examples where it has happened, what the opportunity is, and what it takes to unleash that potential. So first thought, and there will be a lot of plenary discussions today, and I hope to inject some ideas with you. Physical, virtual world, what are the differences? How can you capture the opportunity? Every city will have a theme, whether it's a health city, whether it's an industrial city, an erythropolis, a cetropolis. What is the identity? Culturally, those things have to come together and have to create that sustainability agenda both economically to attract investors, but more and more also socially. That how can you attract young people and talents who want to live in your city? The environment will also be a key factor for quality of life. So what does it take? A little bit about the underlying technology. And it's not about the technology, it's what about the technology enables. We call that the Internet of Things. The physical connections of things, of people, everything that goes to the Internet. Imagine, it's only 30 years ago when we started the Internet that we had 3,000 things connected. Today, we are around 13 billion, and it's accelerating. It's accelerating to what we expect around 50 billion before 2020. At this moment, every hour, 100,000 things are connected to the Internet. And things that are going to be connected lit up, and they start producing data. It is going with a speed that we have never seen in history, neither in electricity, neither in telephony. It's happening now as prices come down of sensors, cameras, equipment, appliances, healthcare devices, wearable devices, whatever you want to call it. So the question I want to ask you is, look at this as a new essential infrastructure, an application-centric infrastructure. And we're used to gas, to water, to electricity. Now think about something horizontally on top of that, and it will be in the cloud with cloud services, in the edge. It will be everywhere. And the output is data. It's nothing new. It's evolution. If you think about the Internet, 30 years ago, we started to connect and we digitized connectivity. Then we went in the second phase, and it was an enormous prosperity, and it unleashed a lot of potential for new businesses and economic development. It was the networked economy. You know, when we switched to e-commerce, to digital supply chain management, collaboration, we started to book our own tickets. Do you remember that? Self-services was injected. It was basically the digitization of business processes. Today, we live in social networking and we have immersive experiences. And we're digitizing the interactions, both business and socially. It's Facebook, it's Google, search engines, relationships, Instagram. You know, a company bought a couple of years ago for $1 billion with 13 employees, leaving behind a company like Kodak with 138,000 people going bankrupt, physical, virtually. Think about these balances. What we're predicting now, what we're now entering, is what we call the Internet of Everything. We're going to digitize the world. Everything will be connected. Specifically, new is now also in the industrial world. And so it's the connectivity of people and things. It will generate data, and it has a unique opportunity to reinvent business processes and to come to new business models. And so the slide I'm building here now is that data. All these things are going to produce an amount of data that is, I think, not overseeable yet. But there's a cure for it. Data is not that relevant. How can you make data information? How can you make information knowledge? And how can you make that knowledge wisdom? And wisdom is what-if scenarios, more informed decisions, disaster and recovery planning, you know, sports events, how do you plan for it? And it's electricity if you have an issue. People coming together in stadiums, how can you move them around? Think about it. 90% of world's data was created into the last 2 years. There is more new data generated in 2012 than the prior 5,000 years. It's mind-boggling. And we predicted by 2020, in cities specifically, 40% of data will come from sensors. A company like Walmart is collecting 2.5 petabytes an hour from their customers. And just, you know, what is a petabyte? 1 petabyte is the same as streaming music 3,000 years. Talk about volumes. A city like Singapore generates several terabytes of data every day. So my first message to you, and absorb it, but I think in cities we're now starting to get used to a CIO who looks at the systems. But I think, and cities start to appoint those folks, but also enterprise companies and public services in general, a chief data officer or a chief digitization officer, who will look at what type of data do we have in our enterprise, our city, our state, our country, and how can we unleash the potential? What are the policies that we need for privacy and security? Let's not forget it. It's going to be more and more important. And we have to develop statements around it. Can people opt in? Can they opt out? How does it work? Who owns the data? It's going to be the digital rights. Who and how can we monetize data? That is what I want to inject with you as an idea, because that data is going to produce urban services, and urban services are a $3 trillion opportunity. Applications built on data, apps, the new buzzword. What is the most popular app in your city, in your company, in your enterprise? It is amazing that at this moment, 2.6 million apps are available around the world. 100 movies are produced every week, 250 books, and 15,000 new apps every week. There must be something good in it that you can deploy. But the point I tried to make, 138,000 apps, 138 billion, apps have been downloaded now, today, and it's increasing. I want to give you one example of an app that is a revolution as we speak, Uber. I think most of you have used the Uber services somewhere in the world as an alternative at the moment for taxi services. But I see it more as a supplement. It's a new business model, but this is an element of scaling. A company with around 1,000 people, hardly any assets in a virtual world, have been able to scale it to more than 83 cities already in 12 months. The market cap of this company, the estimation is close to 20 billion. Imagine that you would have this in your city. What can it generate? What's the wealth it can create? But also think about the future of work. And this is one of the best examples where we talk about a sharing economy and where people are going to share assets in new business models unleashed via an application-centric infrastructure if you have built it. This will be the foray of new innovation, new services. Think about it as a shared economy. Still, 13 billion devices connected is only 1% of what can be connected. And so the potential is unthinkable. I never looked more forward than 5 years. But what this can cause and what type of new services this will create is the creativity and the innovation of your people, your folks, your enterprise, your city. It will, and that is our estimation, have an economic value in the next decade of 19 trillion. I'm not making a mistake here. I had a radio interview and the reporter said, "Stop, Wim, are you really sure? Are you talking about 19 trillion? Yes. Almost the absolute GDP of the US. It's based on 61 real-world use cases, and I'm going to show you some. At the private sector, 14.4 trillion, the public sector, 4.6, and it's built up specifically in the brownfield world, the cities that already exist, the enterprise companies. It will create new revenue streams and innovation, new business models, a 3 trillion opportunity. On supply chain and efficiency, 2.7 trillion. In asset utilization, 2.5. And I always use asset utilization to think about energy management. 70% of energy is consumed in cities. 70% of that energy is consumed in buildings. Buildings have a utilization of 40%. That's a lot of waste and inefficiency. If we could double that, the asset utilization and improvements that we make, the sharing economy, sharing workplaces, virtual work, all these type of new drivers. Smart cities, and that was the theme for today, and that I've been asked to address, is a significant vertical in the Internet of Everything public sector. We see it as a $3 trillion opportunity. New urban services, 2 trillion of open data resulting in killer apps, like an Uber, like a lot of other things, and I'll show you. $18 billion economic value in traffic management, 41 billion in smart parking, oftenly the second source of income for cities. An enormous irritation for citizens. 30% of congestion is people looking for a parking place. An average citizen in Paris is spending 4 years of his life finding it. Something to address, good for the audience and good for the governance to make some money on. Smart lighting, 22 billion. Video surveillance, 62 billion if you deploy it horizontally. And then last but not least, water leakage. 30% of water is lost somewhere with the leakage, and with sensors we can easily track that. So in the past, cities have addressed these issues in silos. Water management, electricity, traffic management. How can we create a governance model as a horizontal governance? And I would say minimal government, maximum governance. That's the objective. And how can you create, with a digitization officer, a data officers, that common infrastructure that we call an application-centric infrastructure, and how can you unleash the potential? You will probably think, but this is expensive, and how are we going to fund this? But safe to invest. You spend, in cities, we spend money on infrastructure from water, electricity, gas. Perhaps take 10% out, make it a central pool, and concentrate on that digital application-centric infrastructure. Barcelona, at this moment, our key city, they adapted this since 1992, after they had the Olympic Games, and they had boroughs and neighborhoods, they called it number 21, and where they started to experiment and developing a vision. And we are now with the technology so far that we can enable a lot of these ideas and really have smart workspaces, people collaborating between different disciplines. We have a program for smart lighting, smart buses, smart water, smart bus stops, smart citizens. The benefits are enormous. So Antoni Vives is the vice mayor, the deputy vice mayor, and he has that super type of responsibility to oversee these horizontal needs and this horizontal infrastructure. And he can decide how to spend part of the budgets of the verticals in a more horizontal way. So they are obsessed with building quality of life for their citizens. Barcelona is known for its history, for its culture, for Gaudi. And they use technology as a key enabler. And the numbers are astonishing. That over the last decade, 1,500 new companies came to Barcelona. They liked it. They saw the sustainability and the opportunity to attract talent. They've created 55,000 new jobs. Mobile collaboration is a productivity improvement of 1.6 billion. Telework, smart parking, Here you see the numbers. And, you know, we're very proud that there is recognition for Mayor Xavier Trias, who has been listed as number 46 in the top 100 business people in the world. As a politician, he is giving prosperity to his citizens, is improving quality of life, and is also possible to attract business and to create harmony in the city. Hamburg, another example. And at Hamburg, in a Hanseatic city in the north of Germany, have a tremendous opportunity with the port. But they have small roads entering these ports. How can we double the throughput? That was the question. That was the output they wanted to realize by using technology smartly. And so they have a plan now to double the throughput in 10 years, to pervade really a quality of life, 75% OPEX savings, service investment reduced, and they're now going to tie it to the ports, to the hospitals. They're building a new neighborhood, the Haven City, and going to use that horizontal infrastructure to start with urban services. It is that application-centric infrastructure that they have built. And so very visionary, very innovative, and a great city council to work with. Another example, that how do you bring the town hall and how do you decentralize government services? Like I said, that's minimal government, maximal governance. How do you make it easy for your citizens to communicate with the town hall? And so we have this moment, decentralization with interaction, using technology, it's an increased reach. And shopping malls like it because it generates traffic. People are coming in. And we're deploying the decentralization of the town hall in Nice, in Barcelona, in Dubai, in Brisbane. More and more citizens are following us. And, you know, one of the real unique things, people use it in the way they want. So we had the first marriage in Nice, in what we call government pot. And then people liked it, but it's just to give you an opportunity and to think about what is possible. So the benefits. And the benefits are so compelling of an application-centric infrastructure that generates urban services. It attracts jobs. It attracts FDI. And I gave you the example of Barcelona, but you can look at it for your own city. Energy savings of 30% are relatively easy to achieve. Water consumption can be reduced by 50% if you stop the leakages, if you have a more efficient way of distributing. Crime rates, if people are more happy, crime rates go down. It attracts young people. It can reduce traffic by 30%, but also, specifically in our aging societies, and you know the US, Europe, we're aging and shrinking. So how do you maintain cost of healthcare? We already know that in the US alone, we will need 2 million people in assisted living. There is a shortage of 300,000 nurses. And after the baby boomers retire, we will have a shortage of 1 million doctors. So how can we virtualize interactions in healthcare? 70% of healthcare calls don't need physical interaction. You can do a lot of preparation via technology, taking blood pressure. And then we're just starting the whole revolution now of healthcare devices and make it affordable. Price points will come down. And that you can do communication with your doctor via technology and then really use his time valuable for discussions to develop programs. Education, $3 per student per month. And the best, of course, are classrooms. But a lot of things can be done virtually. I have 2 boys of 15 and 18-year-olds, and they have only 2 statuses in life. They are asleep or they are online. And that's the future. That's how children already work. We, and me, I talk for myself here, we are oftenly prisoners of our own experiences. I think, of course, in books and newspapers. Probably it's going to be a mixture of both. Also, self-service in cities is going to be a big opportunity. And that like you book your own tickets now and you do a lot yourself from a productivity point of view. And so if you decentralize citizen services, you have 24/7 type of operations where people can report light bulbs that doesn't work, potholes, what they see on the road, and you can respond. It's going to be self-service, and New York alone is spending $200 million a year on maintenance. So in closing, what will it take? But you're there as the experts, and you will talk about all these type of things. How can we unleash this potential? How can we get smart regulation to really take the opportunity to remove barriers, but at the same time take our responsibility for privacy, security, who owns the data? Be proactive. It shouldn't happen to you. You should determine your own future. Visionary leadership, having a vision for the next 5 to 10 years, what it will take. Work with companies and conglomerates who are pursuing global open standards, like cell phone telephony, a technology that works around the world. That is the direction that urban services will go. Public-private partnerships. You can't do this alone. Cisco can't do it alone. No company, no public sector can do this alone. What are the conglomerates that we have to set up? And that will lead to new ecosystems. In the end, it's about creativity, it's about innovation, and I'm looking forward to work with you, to get your feedback via the plenary sessions. I wish you a good day, and I hope that I've been able to give you some new thoughts for the future. Thank you very much.